Python exception handling in Rust is an interesting problem to deal with because of the fact that you are able to get a different type of response in Rust, right? Where you have errors, but in Python, you have exceptions. So how do you do this? Well, first up, in raising exceptions here, you can see here that you can use a new PyError instance or PyError from type to create a Python exception, and then PyError raise to then raise it in Python. On the other hand, to handle the exceptions, you can use .map error to move a Rust result error into a Python exception, or use PyFunction attribute and return PyResult. And you can see this in this function from Rust below. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this works in action here with some real code. I have a project here called Rust Exceptions. And inside of this Rust Exceptions here, I have some Python code. But first, let's look at the lib here. So we are using Py03, and I'm using Py03 exceptions here. And I have a ZeroDivisionError. So this particular function, it raises a ZeroDivisionError if b is 0. So we do a divide here, and it says if b is 0, then go ahead and return a division by 0 exception. And I put whatever exception message I want to make it useful for someone in Python. And then I put this into a module here. So I say a Python module implemented in Rust, and I say PyModule function librust exception. And then all this does is expose the function from above, right? This Rust function into Python. Now, in order to use it, what I typically do is I go to a makefile, and I have a build process that creates a cargo build release, and then I copy that .so file into the current working directory so I can import it from Python. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll just type in make build. There we go. It compiles. Afterwards, it'll copy the successful compilation.so file into the current working directory. And you can see that right here. We have librust exceptions.so. We're ready to go now. All I need to do is call it from Python. So let's go ahead and look at this pydiv.py. First, I import librust_exceptions. Again, this is the same name as that .so file. And also, if we look at librs, we can see here that that function is the same. So if we go back here, then I print that divide function, which has the exception hidden inside. And again, if we go back here, this is that Rust function. So once I've done that, all I need to do is just do a try block, and I say try, and I say librust exceptions.divide, divide by 0, and then we see that there's in fact a exception handle that I'm doing here. So I'm saying, look, let's go ahead and try this, but if there is a ZeroDivisionError, let's go ahead and capture it, and let's do some other thing. In this case, I'm just printing, but it could be some other operation or some other function, whatever it is, whatever logic you want to do to handle that exception. So let's go ahead and run this. If I type in pydiv, there we go. We see that it says 5.0 is the first one, right? We know that it works. But then when I try to divide by 0, which is invalid, it says triggered exception from Rust. And then we see the embedded message as well that's included inside of librs, which could be, again, anything that we wanted to do. So you can see there's a pretty sophisticated but simple way to handle the errors in Rust and then propagate them as exceptions in Python.